worth the paper it's written on.
I call the Honourable Member Dr Jackie Bloom.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'm very pleased to speak to Part 3 and again like to congratulate the officials and the Select Committee because again this is another substantial part to this very good bill. And again, going through looking at the changes the Select Committee made and with the SOP the changes have been made by officials, it's clear that it's been very carefully scrutinised. And it's also clear that there has been a concern about getting that balance right between privacy and using the powers in an appropriate way. And I'm very pleased to see that that has been addressed. There's 4 subparts to Part 3. Subpart 1 is surveillance device warrants and declaratory orders. Subpart 2 is about production orders, which I'll just talk about a little bit later on. And subpart 3 is police and customs officers' powers to search in relation to delivery under Section 12 of the Misuse of Drugs Amendment Act 1978. And the last part is subpart 4, warrantless powers of entry and search incidental to arrest or detention. And just talking about the bill's surveillance regime initially, Mr Chair, this covers the interception devices that can interpret communications, or otherwise known as audio surveillance, tracking devices that can detect where a thing is located or whether a thing can be opened or tampered with, and visual surveillance. And only a judge, importantly, can issue a surveillance order, a warrant, and they've got to be satisfied that all the conditions are met. And I think the thing that impresses me in this particular bill that it's very prescriptive. There's a recipe you've got to follow, there's criteria that have got to be met, and there's a high level of scrutiny. So I'm very pleased to see that, not being a legal person and speaking from sort of a member of the public, as I am when I'm not in Parliament, I'm pleased to know that we have these protections here. And I think the degree of intrusiveness of surveillance will depend on, obviously, the circumstances. So, for example, video surveillance will not always be more intrusive than searching a house under a warrant. But there are significant privacy concerns with regard to visual surveillance involving trespass and audio surveillance. So these methods are limited to very serious offending, and that I think it's entirely appropriate that they are used only in very serious situations and not used, frivolously or with a very low level or low hurdle to cross. Mr Chair, just to speak a little bit about production orders. This part of the bill also introduces the production order regime, and that means really when a person is presented with a production order, they've got to produce the goods that's described in that particular document. It's something that the Serious Fraud Office has been able to do, but this is now going to be extended to the police. But importantly, there's going to be provision for people who feel they can't comply and they have to refuse for reasons such as self-incrimination or recognised privilege. And we talk about the journalists before in the last part about how they want to protect their sources for information, and that New Zealand is a country of free speech. And I feel that all of us here, if we're in a situation where someone had to blow a whistle or wanted to say something and using anonymity, we'd respect that. And similarly, I know that this would be welcomed by journalists, that they can protect their sources, and indeed there's been a real improvement in that power for journalists to protect their sources. So in a situation when there's a production order, the journalists can invoke this situation and not divulge their source at all. And so I think this is another substantial part, and a number of subparts, very prescriptive, very comprehensive, and I applaud the committee and the officials in this section. Thank you.
I call the Honourable David Parker.
I want to come to production orders, but actually one of the great benefits of these sorts of debates is actually